Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be lifting and dividing some of the deciduous ferns. So here we've got lady fern, and you probably can't see it now, but especially up in this region here, it was just too congested last year in the stumpery, and you couldn't really see any of the smaller species like the polypodum. They just dominated it. So we're going to dig some out. We're going to move them, some to the back and some in another spot. The good news is there's lots of really healthy roots and new shoots underneath there. So I think we're going to get quite a lot split from it. And these ferns in particular split quite easily anyway. Again, being deciduous, once you see this, you're good to go. It's not a bad idea to leave these on a side note, if you are growing ferns, because they help with the frost protection. But it's going to be easier to see what we're doing. So we're going to remove those leaves and then we're going to dig it out. So we'll get to that in a sec. The first thing you want to do is get into this ground. So if you get a zoom in on that, that's what we're looking for. So here you can see there's a nice big clump there. We're just going to work around it. Trying not to wreck this log any more than I already have. Again, it looks quite brutal right over cover. And we've got ourselves a nice healthy clump. We'll probably split that into 2 or 3. The main thing you're looking for when you split is the number. I call them eyes. It's not the botanical term for a fern, but these new ones here. There are some that are already going green on a few others, so I'll show you them. It's a bit more apparent on them. So that's step 1. We're going to dig up a few more, and then step 2. It's a step. Here we have a mega clump, as dug up by a glamorous assistant Callum. Yes. If you just flip it over again, so you can see why the ferns have done so well here. Look at that beautiful layer of leaf mould. That's what, 4 or 5 inches. Absolutely gorgeous soil here, if you're a fan. So here's one I was saying that the buds are a bit more obvious on. So you can see that's going to be next year's fronds, obviously, and each clump could be divided into a plant, but you will be waiting a long time for them to thicken out again. So for us, an ideal clump is about 3 to 5 of these things that I call eyes that aren't called eyes here. So I would probably split that one into, there's about 7 on there, so I'd split it into 2, and you can use a spade or 2 forks to pry it apart. I just use a spade. I'm quite rough with them. They're ferns, they seem to take the abuse quite well. So we're just going to go ahead and split some of these off, and we'll show you the process of that. Alright. So if the eyes are particularly close together, you can always use a knife. Preferably someone else's, so you don't have to blunt your own. And this process is exactly the same with a spade, except for it's a lot quicker. And try and do it in 1 or 2 chops as quickly as possible. The knife's really handy for these fiddly ones. There we are, that's 1. The first site we're going to plant them at is just at the back of the stumpery here. So there's this gap here just in front of the beach that hasn't really grown yet, and we're hoping, because they're quite a tall fern, they'll look a bit more naturalised here. So we get a nice big clump here. They shouldn't detract from the ferns at the front. So if we just come in, get a quick look at this. The planting procedure is pretty simple. We've already dug a hole. We've got this beautiful soil here already. It's absolutely full of leaf mould from the beech trees. And we just nestle that in. don't want to bury these eyes. You want to make sure they're at the same level in the ground they were before. I'm just going to crumble that leaf mould on it. Make sure there's no air pockets. And it'll look like nothing at all has happened till the spring, and they all come up. So that's the first spot. Second spot. So this is the next spot. A bit more of a gamble. It's south facing, so not what you'd normally associate with ferns. The soil stays quite damp. There's an old fir tree that's rotted through the ground, so it is full of organic matter still, but not quite as good as the other side. So we're going to plant them in here. We're hoping they're going to frame this log, a bit of a feature if you will of it, and we just hope they're going to grow here. The only thing we're going to do differently is once we planted them, we're going to mulch them really heavily with a bit of bark and a lot of leaves, just to give them what they would not normally get in a woodland. And I'm sure here in the Hebrides it won't be so hot it'll scorch them off. The reason is, if you see those birch trees over there, there's quite a lot of lady ferns growing in there already, and because they've been crown lifted they get a lot of light too. So it's not as much the light as it is the moisture ferns. Again, the procedure's exactly the same. Make sure the crowns are just out. Again, on top of this hill it's a bit more exposed, so that's where the mulch comes in. And if we can find some, we'll probably lay some bracken right on top of the crown there, just to act in exactly the same way that the dead leaves are in nature, just to protect it from the frost a bit. So we just heel it in, we'll get them in the same as that, and we'll show you them once it's been planted and mulched. So that's that. Again, it might not look pretty now, but come the spring, and these are all in full growth, they'll look beautiful. So another thing to remember, don't harvest ferns from the wild. As tempting as it may seem, they're always going to do better where they are in the woods than when you dig them up and bring them to your garden. Always get landowner permission. And the stuff we've used for a mulch as well, don't just go and harvest that from a woodland. Literally all we did was leave some bark and some leaves to rot for 6 months, and we've got a nice forest floor mulch. It isn't hard to make, and it's not worth detriment in a natural area. So one last thing we're going to try is, some of the splits got quite small and quite badly damaged, but there's still roots on that, there's still shoots on that, so it's still alive. So we've got these ash that came down, and as you can see they're quite rotten through the middle, and that's all just pure goodness in there. So we're going to go ahead and try and plant some of these in some of these logs and just see if it works. Like I said, I can't vouch for it, it's a bit of an experiment, but I don't see why they wouldn't thrive in here, especially as the wood starts to rot. And it's something a bit different, and hopefully it deters people from stealing it as firewood, because it doesn't look very appetizing. So that's that. Thanks for watching, hope some of you enjoyed it, and we will have another video soon. Take care, guys. So it might not look like much now, but we're very excited how this is going to look in the spring. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to
subscribe. No. Do it now.